Hey, babe, and welcome to the Peripatia Podcast, a talk show for women. This is the place to talk about how we're ditching our bad habits, long-held patterns, and limiting beliefs. The time is now to stop outsourcing and start insourcing our happiness and bliss. Am I right? I'm Heather Lowe, your empowering life coach, ready to guide you on this incredible journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and freedom. If you're feeling stuck in the cycle and wondering what life could look like if you liberated yourself, well, I've got something just for you. I created a free transformational guide to help you take those first empowering steps towards a healthier and more fulfilling life, the one that you desire. This guide is packed with practical tools, mindset shifts, journal prompts that dig deep, and real-life insight to support you in making changes that truly stick. So, if you're ready to explore what's possible, head over to ditchthedrink.com and grab your free transformational guide today. Again, ditchthedrink.com. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now, let's dive into today's episode and get inspired to create the life you deserve, like so many other babes are doing right now. Here we go. Hello, Peripatia Podcast listeners. I'm super pumped to introduce you to our guest today. Her name is Jen Virale, and you may know her by a different name because she has recently changed her last name to what I would say is a completely made-up name. It's not going back to a maiden name after being in a divorce situation. It's not a new name of somebody else's that you're taking on. This is a name that you came up with, Virale, because you have to sing it, right? That's just all for you. So we're going to be talking about identity, transformation, change. You're allowed to change, and you have just literally changed your last name, Jen. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you. Tell us, let's start with the name change, because that's the big thing, and we'll kind of work backwards from there.
Yeah, it is a big thing. And Heather, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited about our conversation today. Yeah, and it sparked a lot of back and forth emails and LinkedIn questions when I announced my name change, which is really fresh. So, I haven't officially changed it. The divorce papers are coming through, but for my brand, I wanted to start moving into that expression of what my new identity would be. So I announced it on LinkedIn, which is probably the, biggest way to announce anything professionally these days. And oh my gosh, the questions, the support and love, but also what it told me was that there are a lot of reasons people change their names. And I didn't even realize the whole spectrum of what people might assume. So I find myself having to say, yes, it is a completely made up new last name. And just people are like, wow, you can do that? Yes, you can.
Okay, good to know. Well, I always wanted my last name to be Holiday. I thought Heather Holiday would be perfect.
Oh.
I literally searched the phone book back in the day. I'm that old, right? Where there was a phone book. I'm like, there was a Bill Holiday. When he was 67 years old and I was 22. Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, I think, even in childhood, didn't we all change our names? Like I wanted to be Cindy or Lisa. Jennifer was never enough. And I was Jenny. I was Jen. I was all the iterations of my first name, which I had a total blast with. And it aligned with my personality as I changed from Jenny in high school and moved in college to Jen. And then in the professional world, I was like, I should go back to Jennifer. So, and then I returned to Jen again. So it's not actually surprising to me that I would just be like, let's go for a completely new last name.
Yeah. Okay. So a name, and they always say that too, when you name a kid, do they become their name or does their name become them? Right. I thought about that as I was my kids. You have a personal reason to want to change your name, but you also have a professional brand behind your. So you're doing double duty of reintroducing people to you personally and also reintroducing you your brand and your business to them. Tell us a little bit about your business and what you do, since I didn't give you I didn't read a bio or anything for your introduction.
Well, perfect. So I have 10 years of alcohol-free living And, I love how, Heather, you talk about an unlived life. I so resonate with that. I didn't fully start living until I understood the beauty of sobriety. So yeah, 10 years ago, when I was in a corporate environment, I experienced stress and burnout to the nth degree. I was 40, two kids, about 4 and 6, and just doing all the things, high functioning, keeping up appearances until I could no longer maintain that. So I say that I left and started my own marketing communication business, created a culture of one, because at that time, I just couldn't see a marketing role or a company I could go to that I didn't have to wear the hat of being social and drinking and doing all the events and parties. So that eventually served me well in healing. So I took time to kind of heal from all the trauma of alcohol misuse. And then about 4 years into sobriety, I became very vocal about it. And it was because I was an entrepreneur and I didn't have like this overhanging corporate, culture to say, don't share that in the workplace. And I just felt like I wanted to start sharing that so other women could see a path, because to me, others would look at me at that point and you might not have known. She looks like she's got it together. So I wanted to start breaking down those barriers of like what it actually looks like to have an issue with alcohol. And then I fast forward a little bit. I did a TED Talk a couple of years ago, which is called Why We Should Rethink Drinking Culture. And that whole exercise, that was a 9-month progression that went so deep into the sense of belonging and what's happening in culture. And then I will just say, I founded Sauna and Sobriety. So it's a community that we can experience belonging in without alcohol. And all of these things are tying into kind of my role with changing corporate culture, essentially. I'd love to be, societal, but essentially the corporate piece is huge to me because that's my background. My world was events and marketing. So I just kind of fell into this like recognition of all the work that needs to be done to create what you called and is now being called recovery-friendly workplaces. So I'm kind of in a little transition, and my new brand identity is setting me up for what's next.
Oh, I love that. And we were meant to meet because your story is my story. It was in sales, not marketing, but yeah, 2 kids, perfect background, the whole thing. And we actually met live at a drinking event in Minneapolis, but it was a Sands Bar alcohol-free event. So that was so cool. Midwest girls, the culture here. Maybe
Oh,
everywhere, but
well, you talk about
extra.
Wisconsin. Yeah. And I was like, and yes, absolutely. It's just like beer in hand, roadie, like all of that starts at age 12, 13, and it's just so normalized. So yeah.
So what sparked the name change? Where did that come from? Is it something you had been considering for quite some time? And what got you to take the leap?
Yeah. So going through the process of divorce, which has now been about 2.5 years since I shared with my ex that I wanted something different. Like the relationship was no longer serving me. And so I had been thinking about what does that look like to really move into something new and leave that old kind of identity behind. And to me, it was very apparent that and obvious that a name change would be great. So when it really hit though, because it was just in the back of my head, I hadn't voiced it. You know how when you voice something, it's like, I guess it's happening.
It makes it real when you say it out
Yeah.
loud. You don't
And
want to say like, I'm going to quit drinking out loud. Then you find a way to
right,
make it happen, right?
right.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
hadn't said it, but I had been thinking about it for at least a year. And the moment that I knew I needed to was when I got a call from the TEDx International Committee that said, my talk was going to be elevated to the global platform, which is a very, I guess, prestigious place. I'll just say it, that not every talk gets to, because talks are uploaded every day. And they said they recognized the combination of what I was talking about with culture. And now we actually have tangible, elevated non-alcoholic options. So it was like my talk kind of bridged this gap that hadn't really been happened before in the social space and corporate. So when I got that call, my first thought was like, oh no, don't put it out with my married name. Like that was the first thing, because I was like wanting to like leap, wanting to go. And I just was like, and then that identity, like that I don't want anymore, is going to be even broader. And like when you're going for something that's more public, it just really like in my gut, I was like, immediately called my branding friend, my PR friends, and then I called the local TEDx committee, TEDx Edina, who put my talk together. And I said, is there any way we can change it? And she's like, oh my gosh, Jen, no, just because of it's attached to all the video and graphics. And I anticipated that answer, but I also was like, you know, it's telling that I need to change it. So then I reflected. I didn't know what it would be. I reflected on my childhood and a history and what I was drawn to. And I've always loved the Italian culture. I studied in Rome. I grew up Catholic. I had a love of the arts and fashion. And I don't know, just always been drawn to it. So I knew it would be something Italian. And I started writing just in researching. And one Sunday morning after doing that, I woke up and my pen just like wrote it for me. Raleigh. And it means all of the truth. So davvero is right or true. And then all is just, all. And so my brand then, I was like, this is an opportunity to not only get a great new last name, but to reflect the work that I want to do. So I used it for that. Yeah.
I got goosebumps when you were talking because if you're the main character in the story, and you are, it's like your comeback. Like even as big as your TED Talk can go, whatever you do next with your new name is going to top that. It's not even going to matter, you know?
I love that. And I had that thought too, because one of the things professionally, I mean, I've had that last name of Gilhoy for 22 years. And a lot of women said, just out of curiosity, we're like, do you really want to, create brand confusion and you've established all this credibility? And I'm willing to do that. This is my next chapter. I'm 52 and I didn't want to, my community is Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so I had to kind of think broader, like, yes, that is my home base and will always be, but what does it look like? When the TEDx talk went global, that audience doesn't know me. They have yet to meet me. So why not embrace that and be that to them? And, I don't know if it's a year plus trajectory locally for people to kind of catch on, oh yeah, she made the change. But, it's really ultimately not about that. It's about your expression of how you want to be in the world. And I had to set everything aside because there were close friends and family that looking out for me were kind of naysayers to it and just plain devil's advocate. And I trust them and I took everything they said to heart. But eventually I just didn't want to go back to my maiden name felt so far removed. And there are actually two other Jen Gilhoys through marriage. So I was like the third and I was like, I really don't like what is tying me. And also my kids were older. So my daughter is 21 and my son is 19. And so I think, had it been 10 years ago getting divorced, I might have wanted to keep my married last name so I could be closely connected with the kids for all those reasons. And that's one of the biggest reasons I did hear from women as to why they didn't take a new name or do anything at the time of divorce. So I didn't have that. I had a freedom.
I love it. It's a perfect metaphor for change to begin with. And we're allowed to change and we're meant to change. And it's actually the healthiest thing to do, and letting go of one branch completely to grab onto the next. We don't make progress by staying where we are, right? You have to actually let go of that.
And I did think of the metaphor in that butterfly of my initial brand that I launched, personal brand, 3 years ago, was a side-winged butterfly. And it was lighter in color and kind of coming out of the cocoon, emerging. And then this new butterfly, my designer, like, I want black, I want open-winged, I want a strong stance. Like I want, again, all of the truth is a little different than just the truth. So especially when it comes to alcohol, because as you know, it's like the truth can be glossed over, but there are some real truths underneath how it shows up in our culture that I want to disrupt and expose.
And your logo matching full expression of self. I love that. I love that. butterflies always a huge, huge symbol for me too. And
Yeah,
obviously for change and transformation.
for sure.
When you took the name, did you consider it back on your wedding day, changing names? Did you have an opinion way back when?
Oh, I just thought 100% I was going to take his name. I didn't even question keeping my maiden name. And I
Mm.
think that's reflective of, what was I, 29? Um, yeah, I just very traditional to go that route. I didn't even consider it then.
Mm-hmm. Just curious. It's such a thing for me because I took my husband's last name also, but it wasn't without a lot of thought. And I was 25. I was just a baby.
You're
But my mom remarried. My parents were divorced and my mom remarried. And so I was the only one in my growing up house that had a different last name.
Mm,
For me, like the Christmas card couldn't say to this family because there was one person with a different last name. Or at the time I'm dating myself, but our answering machine couldn't say reach the so and so's
yeah,
because somebody had a last name. So I kind of felt odd man out in a way, or like I
yeah.
wasn't like to have a mom that had a different last name than me growing up. It was hard, and she's played with her names and keeping a maiden name and another name and getting rid of the first marriage name, and she's had a lot of different iterations of her name too. Each step is meaningful, but just women in general don't get to carry their name forward. We typically
Yeah,
don't, right?
right. I had one man reach out on the LinkedIn post and he said, you know what? I took my wife's name when we married. Couldn't stand my last name. And she actually was the name to be carried on was going to die out with her generation if no one took that
Yeah.
last name. And I was like, yes. I mean, there's a lot of freedom in that. So, and if you didn't like for my maiden name, Pribble, Pribyl, I always kind of stumbled over the B and people always thought it was a V. So I think it's really funny that Virale starts with a V and
Oh,
all my kids have V's in their names. And like, I don't know, just weird like associations like that that you just go, okay, this is something I can embrace for a lot of different reasons.
I love it. So when you thought you're like, this TED Talk is getting more attention. This doesn't feel right to me that it's a name that doesn't feel like me anymore. It feels like an older version of me or a past version of me. I want something new. How did you then get to, I'm going to make up a name? Like that felt like, did that feel like an option for you? Or did you feel like that would be crazy? Is that even legal? Did you research
Oh,
that?
yeah, I had
Tell
it.
us more about this freedom of choice here in
Yeah,
our team.
I had a ton of questions. And like I said, when I
Yeah.
got that call from the international committee, that stirred up so much that I probably had been thinking about. And immediately I just thought, well, why not? Because I could have also said at the time, well, my talk's going into the world with my married name. I don't want to, like I want to keep going with that. But I didn't. And I think it's interesting. I actually haven't really promoted my talk. And that's because I've also been going through the process of divorce, moving into an apartment, healing. And it's sitting there, it's waiting for me. And I've done many things throughout, like it went live July of 2023. So just over a year it's been out there.
Mhm.
And I've been, looking at different options to be like, should I be a speaker? All of those things. And it's there for me, but I think I immediately just knew at that moment that it's going to shift, it's going to change. And I was prepared to have, a lot of pushback on that from my community and just questioning. But just like when you're around women entrepreneurs, especially, I had a huge support system that everyone was like, if this feels true to you and authentic, you should do it. So that felt good. And I've learned to lean into that as an entrepreneur. My first business I started in 2012. So that's 12 years ago. Um, just relying on others, my support system to just be like, this is your true north, like, that support. And we need to hear that as women, because I think it's just otherwise, we're not taking leaps. We're not reinventing. And to me, like, I have friends that talk about retirement. I'm like, that's not even in my vocabulary because I've finally found my purpose.
I
Yeah.
love that.
No,
Yeah,
for you.
totally. So the fact that you thought about it and it excite you and it lit you up, then you
Mhm.
couldn't ignore it,
Yes.
right? Yeah, like
Yeah, there was
when
no
you're
way.
sober, you
Yeah.
are clear with your intuition and your signs
Mhm.
from your body and the universe. You're paying attention to what the universe is handing you, and you're
Oh
saying,
my gosh,
source,
100%.
yes, I have to go with this, even if it's weird, even if it's
Even
strange, it's not been done
yeah,
before, even if the people in my life don't understand it. I've got a group of people that support it, and I have an inner knowing that I have to do it, even if it doesn't make sense for my business, let's say, or for branding, what's supposed to be your thing, right? For your brand, your marketing, your logo, you have to change everything,
yeah,
fear. And you're like, I have to do this anyways. This
yeah.
is calling me. And you
And I
did. You do it.
yeah,
You're in the process of doing it. But you made the freaking announcement on LinkedIn. So they're
yeah,
like super real. No
yeah.
going back now.
Yeah. And then soon after I did another it felt sort of like a TED Talk with actually a global group called Creative Mornings. And they reached out just like a week after I had made that announcement. And I was like, okay, this is another opportunity to introduce myself to a new audience that doesn't necessarily know me. And that felt really good. I was like, let's just go with Virale for that. Not even parentheses, my married name.
Oh,
Like I make
yeah.
those decisions every day. And I'm,
Yeah, the
oh,
shift from,
yep.
does it even show up or not?
Yes. Yes, exactly. So
Mm.
it's just the nuances of it are just fascinating. But I've heard you, Heather, talk about that intuition and how it becomes crystal clear in sobriety. Like I would have stuffed all that down years and years ago. And now it's just that's the exciting part is like once you have that little spark and you have that to know that it's only meant for you. Like you're the one that's going to move that forward. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
it's the
powerful.
coolest thing.
It is.
Yeah, because when I got sober, I couldn't go back to my job. I was like,
Mhm.
this doesn't sing my soul. It never has. I was good at it. I was good
Yes.
enough at it. It gave me benefits. It gave me status. It gave me big ego. It gave
Yeah.
a
Yep.
paycheck, and it gave me colleagues that I loved. I mean, it wasn't like it was all bad, but I knew it was never what I was meant to do,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah.
And so I got
Great.
sober and I couldn't go back to it. I was like, I have to do my own thing. I have to follow this. And for me, my degree was in social work and I had been doing sales. I was like, I have to go to my social work roots. I really just want to help other women, find freedom. And then obviously it's transformed from there. But our stories are similar in a lot of ways. Like for you, first of all, sobriety is a big, huge change of identity that you did 10 years ago. So I want to hear about that. Divorce is a huge change of identity. Now, hearing like adult children moving into an apartment, like just that, the stages of your kids you're just a step ahead of me. If your life has been surrounded by being a mom and one of your main titles and roles is mom and raising kids, and then they grow up, that's a big shift in identity too at that point. And you're and then a job switch, job change, but also now actual logo change, name change. Tell us about healing and the kind of evolution of where you're going. Also, I think you said you were 4 years alcohol free when you started to then talk about it. And I was 4 years alcohol free before I found sober friends.
Yeah.
I was so like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like all of it, I would say like find it sooner. Like now I have a membership community because I'm like, you can maybe do it without community. I did, but oh my God, it's so much
Not
better.
advised. I know. I
You
always
actually have fun doing it.
yeah.
Would feel loved and belonged and understood. You don't
Mhm.
have to be on an island doing this on your own.
Yeah.
So I resonate with some of the things you're saying. Tell us about for starting like the 10 years ago with sobriety and how that like who you were before then and then kind of who you became.
Yeah. Well, I can solely resonate with like the first year of sobriety. I wrote a story about it. So on my website, jenbarale.com, I have stories that I've written. And one of them is, this I read about a baffling breakup. Like alcohol was this persona and this comfort to me, almost like a friend until it wasn't. But through writing, I've processed a lot of that. And I always say my first year, it was about inwardness. And I read a ton,
Mm.
and I was actually pretty terrified to go to different bars, restaurants, events, because I was like, kind of white knuckling sobriety. And I did the AA thing. I didn't do inpatient, outpatient. And as a result, over probably the course of 11 months, had a couple returns to use in there. And it's because I didn't really, this is 12 years ago when I started to attempt to get sober, was I just didn't understand like how to find other communities, not just people who are in recovery, which has also been a theme of mine. While I think those groups are fantastic and supportive, around 3 or 4 years, I was like, I want to integrate back into these social spaces. I love events. I love community. I love belonging. So I wanted to also share that message with people in sobriety. It's like the anonymity of it keeps you in very close relationships with people that are maybe only sober. And I just love that view of what my community can be, even though I'm sober, is wider, it's broader, and it's opened me up to many more possibilities than had I just kind of shaped a community with only sober people. So you have so many good questions in there. So that's like the first part. You prompt me on the next.
Yeah. So I'm thinking as you're saying it, actually, we're again so similar, but it widens the net because honestly, as a drinker, I would only hang out with other drinkers.
Right.
And
Right.
I can hang out with drinkers and non-drinkers alike. So, it's definitely shifted. And some of my biggest supports and best friends are drinkers. And I have this whole new community of alcohol-free folks that I embrace. So, okay. So socially, so also I think it's okay to tuck in the beginning. I say like, treat yourself like a newborn baby. If you need to wrap yourself in a blanket and get a hot cup of tea and go to bed, that is huge. Life can be a lifesaver. So go to bed, tuck in, say no, don't go to the thing. You don't have to go to those things. And eventually you might find your way out. But I don't think it's a bad strategy for early sobriety. And I'm glad that, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be here. So it got there.
One of the things I want to mention that we're talking about now, so what was happening in my relationship with my husband was I just felt like I needed to kind of go away and fix this problem. And I think there's a lot of people in early sobriety that maybe don't understand the positives and the dynamics of trying to bring your family along with you for that journey, because I kept saying, I don't need you, like, you keep drinking, like you keep doing your thing. I'm just going to be over here. And what eventually happened was we weren't creating like new mutual interests and social activities together. No one told me. I just was like, I'm on a track to get sober. I don't care what it takes, but it would have benefited to hear that message in early sobriety, to bring your loved ones along for the journey as much as you can, especially in a spousal relationship, because that's real. And think of why you're with this person and you're drinking a lot at the end of your alcohol misuse. Likely they are as well. And likely that is a commonality or bond that you've built your relationship on. So I had to kind of reflect and recognize that was a pivotal kind of point where we got off track. Then, eventually we're divorced. And it's it's a hard truth that alcohol has to play such a central part. I called it the third party in our relationship, and I've written about it. It just popped up in the beginning. It's how we met. Like you talk about meeting your husband at a bar in Wisconsin. I met my husband at a bar, the U of M campus, and you just that's intertwined.
We're party people together. That's what attracted us to each other, to be honest. Yes, sure. I was terrified. I was terrified to lose my marriage if I kept drinking, and I was terrified to lose my marriage if I quit too.
Oh, yes.
I, like you, I wanted every single thing in my life to stay the same, and just I would quit drinking over here on the side.
Right.
Don't mind me.
Don't mind me.
Everything stay the same, and I'll just be over here not drinking. Nobody noticed, please.
Yes.
But that's not the way it works. So I always describe it like a mobile above a baby's crib. When one of the animals makes a change, it creates instability with all the other animals, right? We're a system, and especially in a family, you're a system. So when one animal shifts down, all the other animals start to wobble. Will change things. It'll change everything.
It's massive.
It changes it for the better. Even divorce is a beautiful
Yeah.
happy ending as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
with grief and
Absolutely.
pain and all that, but ultimately, I'm sure it's a beautiful becoming for you both, right? So,
Yes. 100%.
yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, so you quit drinking privately, quietly as you could. You're not talking about it in your marriage. You're just like, you go on, I'll be over here not drinking. But
Mhm.
you see, it's starting to create a divide. There's becoming a disconnect. And you're changing as a person, and you're not the person that he married, right? He
Right.
married maybe a party girl, and
Yeah.
now got sober Sally. Uh, Lucky him.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you keep marching to your own path, your own truth, as you can see this is creating a divide in your marriage?
Yeah. Well, a lot of raising kids, right? So my kids were then like 8 and 10, and I leaned heavily into momming, like really hard. And I wanted to make sure that I would have those experiences with my kids while they were young. And one thing that I do look back on is just a complete gratefulness of being able to recognize that at the age that I did and spend time with them and create a life with them. But I feel like my identity easily got wrapped up in them and then work. I can always just keep working. And I think there was, neglect on different areas of my life and and a not the willingness to kind of really look at everything, but I also knew the lessons that sobriety taught me. I just kept applying those as I moved along. So like
Mhm.
I got rid of some of like other habits like smoking or drinking Diet Coke or all those sort of things. You
Mhm.
just apply what you learn in sobriety to continuing to live a healthier life. And I moved along with a lot of care and focus on the kids and figuring out work and what I wanted my career to be. And I would say that was, a good 5 to 6 years of just being in that zone. And then really, the kids, once they are, graduating and starting to move out, I'm thinking, what's next? And
Mhm.
it became very apparent that, they're moving on with their lives and it's an opportunity to redefine mine. And I watched women too, some years ahead of me, like just heartbroken when their kids, left for
Mhm.
college, dealing with all of that. So I felt in many ways just prepared with a community of women who had went through that, but I wasn't fully prepared for all the freedom that comes with that. And I think it's such a beautiful thing as women, like having a husband and then having kids to care for, showing up in the workplace, and then just having a moment to like pause and take a breath. And I know a lot of women are into caregiving roles with their parents, which thankfully my parents are wonderfully healthy and that so it does feel like a beautiful like freedom right now.
Oh, I hear you because I feel like I can't hear myself as I feel like a highly sensing person, HSP, some people call it. Some
Mhm.
people would say empath. You say whatever you want.
Yep.
So you might say
Yeah.
trauma in childhood that has you overly concerned about how everybody else is feeling. But I can't hear myself think unless I'm alone. Like I have to go for a walk in the woods, take a drive in the car, be alone to even hear myself think sometimes because when I'm surrounded by people that I love, I'm concerned about their well-being and how they're doing, and I'm sensing and feeling them,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
to have some space from that for
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
to actually hear yourself start to think,
Yeah.
right? And what do
No.
I think about this? Not how is this gonna people please and peacemake and do all the things that we do as
Yeah.
moms, right?
Right. Right. And I think there's also just going through what I call just unraveling a relationship and separating and uncoupling, just some other terms for what actually happens in divorce. There were just moments where I felt like the energy, so, like, I am an empath, the energy in the house, in our shared environment was so oppressive that I could start to see what I wanted to do either with work, career, life, whatever, and I just couldn't get there because of the energy around me in that space. And that propelled me. And that's a whole nother series of like, all of a sudden I find myself like making a move to look at apartments. All these moments of women coming into my life and people coming in at the right time. I actually have chills right now. I just have to tell a quick story because I hadn't, 22 years in the same home, and I knew I would be the one to go. And I was fine with that. I was like, I just knew in the situation, the dynamic, I would have to make the move. And out of the blue, I called a friend who I hadn't talked to in 10 years. She was, we had connected and lost touch. And I said, I feel like you are a realtor. Can you just give me some advice on what I should be looking for or how I make this next move? And we hadn't talked in 10 years. And she called me back and said, it's like she had drafted a text to me the day before and was going to send it and didn't because it was so long and she wanted to call me. So she was going to tell me she's been watching my sober journey. She's had a couple months of sobriety and just reaching out to say, let's reconnect. So like, and then when I learned where she lives where I live now. And I was like,
I don't know, you call it God winks or.
oh my God, it was such a sign. I was like, it was such an overwhelming task to think about leaving my home. And here, my first call is to this woman who's like, this is a safe space. I'm here. Come here. I'm like 100%. So,
and realtors everywhere are listening to this going, and that's why we try to stay top of mind.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years top of mind. 10 years. That's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I got goosebumps too. Yeah, again, following your intuition, hearing the beat of your own drum, your own North Star, your own whole truth. And you know what? The truth is often inconvenient.
Yeah, and there are a lot of shoulds. I'm like, well, should I be doing this? And, it's not financially sound to move out and be on my own. Like making years, it feels like, of making those hard decisions, life decisions. And also just knowing, not everyone's going to love it. Like some people, I'm sure, were like, I can't believe you're not fighting for the marriage and doing all these things. And they have no idea of the backstory. So you have to leave all of that aside, which is really hard as a people pleaser and like wanting to make sure people know like your side of the story. So they, feel like what you did was okay. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, the external validation. I always say nobody knows what's going on in a relationship except for the two people in the relationship, right? And there's always your story, my story, and the truth. Right?
Yes. Yes. 100%. Yes.
That's tough, though. That's really tough to do something that feels so polarizing. And then probably people in your life feel like they have to pick sides and there's a good guy and a bad guy or something like that. That old story, right?
Yeah. And I just, we've tried to just set the tone with our kids and family that we both have, it's two people in a relationship. And I've seen uncoupling go much better than what is traditionally thought of as just being, just a terrible pulling apart. But like we were talking earlier, there's a time and place for everything. And I never would wish those years away. It's just an understanding of where we're at now and why. It makes so much sense as I've reflected and written about what was happening. It makes a lot of sense. We're at where we're at. Accepting and letting go. Letting go.
Yeah. And your look back can be, I think I mentioned this prior call, like a successful relationship doesn't have to last forever. Like if we're growing, evolving people, they should change. And that doesn't mean that relationship was a failure. It means it taught you what it needed to teach you while you were there. And now it's teaching you what it needs to teach you by letting go. It can be a beautiful, successful relationship that doesn't last forever. I have long-term friendships, decades worth of friendships that I thought would be in my life forever, and they're not. And that doesn't mean that's bad or anybody's the villain or, it's okay. Again, we're meant to grow and change, and our relationships will reflect that. And that's growth. Really, that's growth, and that's healing. You've mentioned healing in a lot of ways. So tell me more about that. What does the healing journey look like for you? From sobriety through divorce to even this new name change.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always come back to is being enough. Like there's many points in my life where I just felt like I was continuing to strive and trying to do the right thing and never feeling like I was enough for whatever reason.
This is
And,
me today. So please.
well, it yes, but I'm a trajectory, like the spectrum of enoughness.
Mm-hmm.
I have grown so much through sobriety. And to me, I use the word grace a lot, but I have to give myself a lot of grace all the time because there's standards, there's things I'm trying to live up to and aspiring to that it's a constant journey to meet that. But just that deep inner knowing of things are going to be okay. Like what's the worst case scenario, and just that kind of feeling of peace, which I think if anything, as we age, if we can embrace that, well, I think of like me in my 20s and 30s, just go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
Never pausing to reflect or just move through life a little bit more intentionally, which I think is the beauty of kind of the healing I've went through and I'm in now. And now there's just another challenge. There's a challenge of, what does my work look like going forward? Because I have a lot of opportunity and just trying to assess where is my purpose going to take me next? And then just being open to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I'm working on that truly. I just saw like a meme or something the other day that said, I don't want to like hustle and grind. I want to sit on the porch. I thought I am in an era of I can throw myself as an entrepreneur into my business and I love it. It's creative energy, impact, healing, purpose, everything. I love it. And also like your measurement of success. Like I want to sit on the porch. Like
Yeah.
to what measure, to what degree are you going to pound yourself to the ground for something, right? To what degree. So
Yeah.
also time for reflection, time for sitting.
Absolutely.
Time for
Yeah.
sitting
And I
to feel.
luckily have had always throughout my entire life a drive to move for movement and to work out and like to keep that piece of my self-care going. So I feel like I've really leaned into that heavily this last year and a half. And also like we was talking about earlier, I haven't really promoted my TED Talk. I'm like, it's great. It's one tool. I don't have to like go on a speaking circuit and be crazy about, it's here for me when I'm ready and when it makes sense for me to tap into it, I will do that. But the pace is different. And I do sauna, I run, I do yoga, and it's a luxury. Sometimes my Fridays are just back-to-back movement and self-care. And then I work Saturday and Sunday mornings. I have a 2 or 3 hour work session because I know my creative brain and like writing it can be engaged. So I don't put guidelines around that, but I definitely like it's self-care is wonderful. Like being able to read a book and do all those things just in the middle of the day on a Monday, take a nap if I need it because my brain hurts from trying to process things. And that's a
The autonomy of entrepreneurship is everything. I mean, literal freedom and health. So for you, I block my calendar from calls on Mondays. I don't do calls on Mondays, so I can prep myself for the week. Sometimes it means going to the grocery store. Sometimes it means taking a nap. Usually it means doing my spa circuit at the gym. And I've shared this story before, but when I went to a therapist, a substance use specific therapist I told her I was drinking too much and I was scared. She told me I didn't have a drinking problem. I just had an anxiety problem. Take these pills, keep drinking, I'll be fine. It didn't really work out for me, as you can imagine. But she said I would have to spend hours at the spa for the same amount of relaxation I would get like from just 20 minutes and a glass of wine. And I think about that all the time because I'm like, the thing is, I'm the kind of person that needs to spend hours at the spa. And guess what? I do. Every week I spend hours at the spa and I prioritize that. And it keeps me happy and healthy. And what's best for me, guess what? It's also best for my family, right?
Yeah.
They're happy to see me go to the gym. They know it's going to be 3 hours.
Right.
Because after my little yoga class, I'm going to sit in the sauna. I'm going to sit in the steam room,
Yes.
shower.
Well, and what we don't know is that in your subconscious, like doing those sort of things are sorting themselves out. So when I come back after 2.5 hours of like a run and a sauna session, I have such clarity. And the problems I had earlier that it would take so much energy to tackle,
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go. I feel like it increases productivity.
For sure. And I always say I'm a brand new person after a walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yes.
Like, talk to me after
Yeah.
my walk, right? I'm going to have a different
Yes.
attitude. All of a sudden, birds are chirping and
Oh, yeah.
my endorphins are feeling good. My feet are on the ground. I'm not buzzing like I was of
Yeah.
madness. So yeah, we need to, okay, self-care, taking care of yourself, movement, exercise, sweat is great. And tell me how your business overlaps with your alcohol-free mission and your socializing mission along with branding. I mean, the irony too of like event planning
Yeah.
part of the job. And I mean, for me, I always say in sales, drinking felt like part of the job. I
Yeah.
got access to decision makers in drinking environments. I was
Yeah.
usually the only one on
Yeah.
all a sales team. So good thing I could be part of the old boys
Yep.
club, my drink
Yep.
in my hand. And
Totally.
tell me how that's overlapping for you or how this is morphing too, from the corporate world to your own thing to more of like a social impact kind of mission.
Yeah. I mean, I think as I continued to follow purpose all along, I think about it in different circles of interest. Like I knew I was interested in marketing and events, and then I started building what I felt like was my sober and my alcohol-free lifestyle. And then I started to look for places and ways that those overlapped. And that's where I've kind of honed in on this. Like, yeah, I want to be ultimately, I would love to do like some version of my TED Talk and go into workplace culture and be the education, the motivation, and the inspiration for it. And then roll right into a non-alcoholic happy hour and like talk about what people are experiencing and the uncomfortableness of, oh, there's no alcohol here. And like really, I think what I love about what I'm trying to do is broader, and it's more about modeling what these social and corporate spaces look like, because I can sit back and say, tell a culture, tell an organization, this is what you need to do. You need to offer NA, but it's broader to me than that. It's a balance of readiness for an organization to embrace it and where they're at, and then also the tactical piece of just having those offerings. So I'm excited to like model that in corporate spaces. And that's again why I created Sun and Sobriety. Was 6 years ago. That was my happy place, my adult social space where I didn't have to explain why I wasn't drinking. And so that I was like, there's got to be other people in sobriety that would absolutely love this, because no one likes the question of, I mean, most of us think about it. If you're sober, you're still engaging and going into these bars and restaurants where you're oftentimes maybe the only not drinking or one of few. And the atmosphere is just, it's alcohol centric, right? So we're always exposed to that. So I loved the socialization of sauna and well-being. And so that's what I want to make a connection for people, that if you're doing something healthy and good for yourself, that you're not pairing it with alcohol.
Yeah, to have all the even my gym, all the pairing alcohol with yoga and alcohol with and even jokes at my spin class, like,
oh, for sure,
like as if there's alcohol in the water bottle or something.
Yeah, right.
Literally here for our health, and you have to throw in the poison, right? It's just,
I know. And it's, after having 10 years alcohol free, in the beginning, all of those environments really irritated me and were triggering, and they still can be. But I feel like things are moving into the direction where there are a lot more people, as you know, just choosing not to drink for whatever reason, which is very exciting. But I'm starting to, just that empathy and that love of like that person who is maybe pushing the drinks on others, because that's what I would do, right? Like,
that was the only thing that would get me to yoga class, I'll be honest. Like,
yeah,
I get a wine after. Okay, I'll do some poses,
wine
right?
and wellness, and
Right.
yeah, absolutely. I was the same way. That's a reward. I still see that at many, races and events where you get done with this grueling like race, and then here's your reward, couple drink ticket.
Oh yeah, I've ran half marathons. Just the whole thought of the beer at the end, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a hot dog.
Yeah, right.
I had such a fun experience, though. The world is changing. The other day, there's an alcohol-free brewery. Shout out to Go Brew in Illinois. And I
Yeah.
went there with friends the other weekend, and my friends drank alcohol. There's beers with alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, so I had my beers without alcohol. It was a non-issue. We all had drinks. We all had fun. We actually just went back again, listened to music, played our cards, had our drinks, had a great time. Then there's a brewery across the street or across like the parking lot from Go Brew. That's an alcohol, a brewery that brews beer with alcohol. And they also have non-alcoholic options. So we took our drinks and it was like we were bar hopping, right? We walked across the street, and again, they got what they wanted and I got what I wanted. Like in both places, we both had whatever we wanted. In the me not drinking and the them drinking, none of it was a
An
deal.
issue.
None of it was a non-issue for everybody. And that's how I really want it to be, the world. Like everybody has an option for what they want to drink, and everyone can choose whatever they want. And
I
it's
love
a
that.
non-deal, right?
Well, and that's our next sauna and sobriety event on this Saturday is at a brewery. And we've had some, pushback, like, why would you have it there? That's not a safe space for sober people. But again, with the disruption idea, and also these breweries are oftentimes community gathering spaces. And I think, the social change that we're talking about means that we need to change our social environments. Like bar and restaurant owners, you're not going to have people coming in drinking NA drinks for 6 hours over the course of the evening. So what are you going to do to make that social experience different? And, our Gen Zers are showing us how it's done with activity and just different choices. So, paying attention to that and like being able to say, as a brewery, if you want to stay relevant and lively, having these options are great. There's going to be more people that want to engage and, have an alcoholic beer and then switch, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What I've seen is,
have you heard the term switchers? Yeah.
well, the ditch and switch. No, I am.
Right.
Just to be on brand. No, I've hosted I've moderated some panels, like Drink Less Fest type panels, and these alcohol-free options are becoming a top choice for drinkers and non-drinkers alike.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I always say the vegetarian decides where you're going to eat and the sober person decides where you're going to drink. I'll tell you, I'm bringing 12 people with me wherever I go. And they are looking at the alcohol-free menus, telling us, Heather, we can go here. Heather, they have this. And
so
it's
great.
You're getting the revenue from them and me, but I'm deciding it's the place that has the best alcohol-free menu is where all of us are going. Because they can get their drinks anywhere, right? You can get your bourbon, whatever, whatever you want. So
for sure. I
makes
love
total sense. Yeah, and I want to link arms with you to talk about this in the workplaces, create new kinds of happy hours. The whole thing. But it is great. There is incentive now nationally with recovery-friendly workplaces and a real initiative happening. And there's an emblematic distinction for those places that are embracing this.
And I do think events in the corporate space are the way to showcase what my motto is, which is sober, not somber. So if you have a workplace culture, and traditionally if someone who has a drinking problem goes to HR and it's quiet, it's not as open in the culture. Whereas if you had an event and you made it that and you could show that celebration and what's possible, to me, that has a different impact than this, quiet kind of, like I did when I left corporate. It was very hush hush and like, oh my gosh, she has to go away, which just contributes to the stigma. So I think events are, what I like about it, it's just an opportunity to show that it's not a shameful thing and that everyone can, embrace a sober, celebrated life.
I love that. Yeah, I hid my drinking and then I hid my not drinking too.
Yeah,
I pretended to drink.
That's crazy, isn't it? Just like, why should I have to do that? I'm proud of my sobriety, but yet it's not accepted or looked upon highly.
Yeah, definitely. And the answer to like, I'm not drinking is awesome. Good for you. Not like, why you have a problem? Oh, are you an alcoholic? What's wrong?
What's wrong?
Yeah. It's like everything is right about this. So definitely I'm with you. So there goes to change to an evolution. Like our doctors once smoked cigarettes while they were giving us our checkup, right? And that has changed. And it's good, and we didn't always wear seatbelts and now we do and it saves lives. Like these awareness kind of campaigns really can change culture. And speaking of change and evolution, there's a personal level to do that, which you have done and embraced and continue to do. And there's also a cultural level that we need to, it's adaptation, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
evolution. And we're allowed to do that on a bigger scale too.
For sure. Yeah. I see that happening. I mean, my background, I worked with the American Institute of Architects, and I see designers and architects playing a huge part in changing the cues in our social spaces that tell us what's okay. I haven't seen that happen, but that's the kind of thing that I think is possible, and people, are talking about and should be talking about more. And I think corporations that, are worried about attracting the younger workforce and figuring that out, this is a huge thing to, wrap their head around and fully understand how to deliver that in a workplace.
I love it. So tell me more about your future vision for you personally, and then for Saunas and Sobriety, and Jen Verale, your brand company as well.
Yeah. Well, Heather, I want to work with you because I've been
done
very much thinking about the bridge between the culture and like the technical piece of HR and that piece of it. So I feel like my work will be in that space going forward. And then with Sauna and Sobriety, again, it's like a model of wellness without alcohol at the center. And I can see taking that into many different models. And I'm also, as I'm going, the cool thing is I don't have a product that I am tied to. So I can be selective in bringing different products and the stories of those different NA makers into spaces and highlighting them. So I'm excited about some of the partnerships I have. I want to have a partnership somewhere in Italy so that it's part of like why I chose the last name I have now and want to step into something there. So it's a little manifestation going on. But, I think there's work in the corporate space and then these models of wellness and well-being, because those are I think, individuals that need to see it, to see what's actually happening, to see all of the truth and how our events are usually structured and make change. So yeah, I see several things. And we're also looking at planning NA Day for the Twin Cities for 2025. So cool. I have to come to Chicago to visit you.
Yes, I was going to say next stop Chicago. That's definitely it.
We've learned a lot from everything that has been done in Chicago.
Shout out to Carrie May and Chicago AF. And Carrie for the NA Day. Love that model. Come for sauna and sobriety. We actually do saunas at Go Brewery too. We have ice baths, sauna, lots of wellness days, lots of wellness things. You'll laugh because you're a runner. I chugged alcohol. I did a race there last time I was there for their wellness day. I had to chug a beer and run 1/10 of a mile, and I did it. I ran 1/10 of a mile.
I
t-shirt to prove
it.
Oh,
well,
I ran,
what matters?
I ran 1/10 of a mile.
Yeah. Did it say that on the t-shirt?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, and Go Brewery is lovely too. We just did a sampling and a tasting at Lucille's, a new bottle shop here, and I was like, wow, these up are so amazing. So I also had I like it. From wine to beer to, I would say probably wine and beer are my biggest kind of NA go-tos. Yeah. I haven't found that I like a lot of the hard alcohol, like the replacement. For those. So I feel like maybe yours are too. The tastes are changing. Like once you start tasting these botanicals and like all these other flavor profiles available, I hardly want like anything that resembles alcohol. So
yeah, I'm
it's
with
been
you.
Unchange.
Yeah, and then something in Italy. I love that. And shout out to my producer Laura Silverman. She'll get it on her Zero Proof Nation
I love
app.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll love to talk to you about that. I've had clients that have been to Italy and back, and I was just in Paris and back a couple years ago, but definitely seeing you for more. So awesome. Well, I'll have all your contact information in the show notes, and I look forward to staying connected. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely, Heather. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Peripatia Podcast, a talk show for women. Don't forget to download my free ebook, The 12 Truths to Change Your Life. Do it for the plot. We'll see you in the next episode. Lots of love.